Good morning, says Miss Shivani Rajkarya. Good morning, Miss Rajkarya. How are you doing? Should we begin? Am I audible? Is it cool? Oh, my phone's battery needs a flux. Just 1 second, folks. This is great. Perfect. So let's begin. Right? Let's begin. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. Right? It makes our morning, it informs us, it inspires us. We don't miss it. Can't afford to miss it, even for a day. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, Nishant, says Mr. Sharma. Good morning, Mr. Sharma. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, you gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition? You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip? We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with some black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Healing. Absolutely healing. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. It's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So there's a good news, folks. The good news is that Ether's stock probably touched 620 yesterday. 620. So if you've been following Thinker's Frequency for a long time, viewers of Thinker's Frequency would know. The first time we mentioned Ether as a yeah, no, as an investment opportunity, or let's say as a market opportunity, and we pointed out the contrast between Ather and Ola. It happened when the stock was at 310, essentially 310, 315, 320, something of that sort. We started talking. We said, I remember the first report which said was that these numbers, Ola and Ather sales numbers, are colliding. And that's when I had said it doesn't make sense for Ather to be valued at 1.2 billion when Ola is valued at 1.8 billion or 2 billion. The valuations should flip, right? And now the stock touched 620. So essentially, if you listened to Thinker's frequency, you know, and if you took an action, or let's say took a whatever you can call it, right, it would have doubled your money. So that's very good, right? So if you essentially benefited from that insight or analysis, right, congratulations, congratulations. If you did not, that's okay, that's totally fine. The market hopefully will keep presenting us with uh, extraordinary, astoundingly beautiful opportunities, and we'll keep this on, right? If we are open, if we just keep looking, if we are careful, uh, we'll be able to benefit, right, from the good that the market brings, the world brings. But we just have to predict, right? So what we need to do is to look into the future, as we always say, uh, the margin call dialogue, which I like so much, right? Jeremy Irons, he says, you know why I make the big bucks? Because I can hear the music playing a day, a week, and a month from now. And that's all we have to do. We have to see the music playing from a bit afar, uh, and that'll be great, right? So, from afar, right? Grammar. Anyway, so that's that. There's another good news. If you are fans of music, a band called Rush, which is an iconic, legendary band, they're coming back after 10 years. So this story is not just relevant for music fans, but it's something that I highlighted when I talked about founder partnerships, right? Friendships in founding teams. And I said that's the most important component of any successful story. It's not the market, it's not the opportunity, it's not the product, it's not even the investors, it's not even the customers. It's about how well friends stick together, how well friends can be together, and that's what shapes a company's destiny. So there's a band called Rush. It started in the 70s. It's one of the most iconic bands in the world. I'm a huge fan, of course. It's progressive rock, so complicated time signatures and stuff. Now, Rush had three people, Geddy Leeser, Alex Lifesenser, and Neil Pearson. Now, this is not an irrelevant story, so just bear with me. Now, Geddy Leeser, Alex Lifesenser, and Neil Pearson, rest in peace, they played with Rush from 1976, right? And they kept playing with the band till 2016. And the only thing that led them, which basically broke them apart was death. Neil Pearson died from cancer, right? So he couldn't play anymore because he was sick. So they had a very very big farewell tour, right? And that farewell tour led then nobody, they didn't say that Neil Sir was having cancer. They just closed the chapter and they said this is the final tour, and then they just let Neil Peart Sir be. Neil Peart Sir died, a few years ago. He's one of my heroes, personal heroes, because he's not just a musician. He was also a rider. He used to do long bicycling trips, then long biking trips. So his wife and his daughter died, in a span of 6 months back in the 90s. So he did something very strange. He took his bike and he just traveled on his bike. He just rode his bike for almost 2 lakh kilometers. So for 2 years, he just kept riding. He just kept riding, right? And about how, because that was the only way he felt he could overcome such a tragedy. And then he wrote a book called Ghost Rider Travels on the Healing Road. which was essentially a travel memo when he was just riding the bike for 2 lakh kilometers from US, Canada, then to Belize, Mexico, and so on. So it's just extraordinary. Anyway, so these people worked together as friends till death do us apart. That's what made them the most successful band, in their play, and just legendary in every way. They got inducted by Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and so on and so forth. Now, when Neil Peart sir passed away, right, Rush essentially closed down because Neil Peart sir is said to be one of the best drummers of all time. Now, Alex Sir and Geddy Lee, the two other members of the band, they didn't play for 10 years, right? But they're now coming back and they say that we want to honor Neil's legacy. We don't want to replace him because he's irreplaceable, but we miss playing on the stage and we are coming back. So that is, uh, what leads to good companies, what leads to good partnerships, what leads to good projects is not the market, is not the compulsion of having to work together. It's when you actually stick together with as friends, right? When you can actually talk for like 10, 20, 30, 40 years straight, right? Like Mr. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger sir. Like that's why most Indian businesses are essentially brothers, right? A lot of family businesses in India and even the startups, a lot of them are brothers. And I when I wrote this article, I wrote about Urban Company when Mr. Varun Ketan said, my brothers in crime, and that was a beautiful speech. So most partnerships are essentially great friendships, and one great example is Band Rush, which is coming back. So cheers to you folks. So if you want to get introduced to Rush, a song which you can listen to is Limelight, a beautiful song, and then there's Subdivisions, Spirit of the Radio, and so on and so forth. Very, very legendary band. So you'll not lose at all. Anyway, so these were the two good news that we could see. Relationships triumph everything, uh, and then of course our look into the future, which has helped us a lot. I hope you liked all this. Moving on, IT companies on alert as hyperscalers eye slice of enterprise spends. Hyperscalers, that's Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and so on and so forth. These people are looking at enterprise spends and directly undercutting IT because some overlap. Now, IT and these web hyperscalers have a very love-hate kind of a relationship because IT guys essentially deploy a lot of these solutions on for their clients. So these people are very good clients or customers of hyperscalers, but with agentic AI and everything, hyperscalers are essentially looking at taking some business away from these people. Now, at the same time, what you were seeing on Monday was that the IT stocks rebounded a little, right? Now, and brokerages had said that IT fears have bottomed out and now they expect something good to happen. But if you look at the overall macro overhang, this is the kind of news that you will see. IT companies on alert as hyper consolidation of enterprise spends to hyperscalers and agentic AI likely to hit IT services. Now, we've been talking about this for 130 days now, over 133 days. Uh, Anybody who buys IT stocks right now deserves at least like Mahatma Gandhi Bahaduri Puraskar or Pradhan Mantri Bahaduri Puraskar because there's so much of things hanging over as clouds in the Indian IT play that uh, even if in the short term or in some way some news balances everything, there's a quote on this: what fresh hell is this, right? So the industry is dealing with that kind of fresh hell because a lot of deals, as we discussed yesterday, were taking a lot of time to close. A lot of deals are since they are taking a lot of time to close, you can see it could go either way, right? It could go either way means that you'll obviously not earn that much money on those deals because if they're taking so much of time to close the deal, they'll have more negotiating power. If they have more negotiating power, they'll be able to squeeze the company, right? Number one. Number two is if forget about squeezing the company, what if they don't renew the deal altogether? What can IT do then? So a lot of deal renewals might just be looking at not happening, right? And then, even if the deal happens, right, even if they get some build, operate, transfer models, right, uh, that's essentially cutting the hand that feeds you, right? So a lot of GCCs that are going to give business to these guys for a short period of time, overall the long term view is not that great, right? So we've been talking about this, we've been very very sturdy on our view. Let's see, it's us against the brokerages. Let's see what happens. Moving on. So a lot of AI news, right? A lot of AI news which is happening. Some good news is coming to us as well as we are building in AI. I hope I can share it with you soon. Right now I can't, but this is good. Touch wood. Uh, Now, the founder of Stack Overflow, the CEO of Stack Overflow says, Mr. Prashant Chandrasekhar, that AI will checkmate Indian youth if they don't learn to code. So what AI is saying is that you can just not code, right? You can code in your language. And he says that's not cool. You'll have to code. You'll have to learn to code, because if you don't, AI will essentially take over you. Now, I find a logical fallacy there, that if AI will take over you, if you don't learn to code, right? How is it gonna be different if you actually learn to code without AI? So let's say if you learn some foundational coding, how's that gonna save AI from taking over you? Now AI is taking over you anyway, right? If you learn foundational coding or you know vibe coding, let's say. So there's no way you're competing with AI. Essentially, all you can hope for is that the system that AI generates doesn't take away your job, right? And but he says AI will checkmate Indian youth because there's a lot of lack of foundational coding skills as far as this country is considered. Well, skilling is an ongoing conversation for the country that shouldn't surprise anybody. Moving on, Chinese semiconductor companies are looking at matching US giants. So they're saying that this is gonna happen, but this is not gonna happen anytime soon. But this is going to happen, that Chinese companies are gonna be competing with the likes of Nvidia and gonna be doing that successfully sometime soon. Well, that shouldn't surprise anyone for a lot of reasons, right? Number one is that China has put sort of an embargo, or let's say it's said that you don't have to buy AMD and Nvidia chips anymore. So China is going heavy on its own chip making. They are talking about Atmanirbharta as far as the whole chip manufacturing ecosystem is considered. They're going bullish on Huawei and other people in that area. Now, if that continues, they will indeed take over, right? And who knows how far they've reached as far as this place considered. Uh, Maybe they've already made a lot of strides and not coming out in the open with the news of something. So, while Nvidia has a lot of, uh, you know, margin margin in the way that there's a lot people have to catch up on to really pose a serious competition. You cannot underestimate China in any way, because you just can't, especially as far as manufacturing talent is considered. You can't. So that's what people are saying that maybe it's a 2030 story. But here's the problem, right? These things are not linear, and these things are also not binary. So I'll say that again. These things are not linear, and these things are also not binary. So let's say if 2030 is when China has officially eclipsed US with the world's most advanced chip. Let's say, right? Just a hypothetical. What about the times before that? What about the progress before that? And the second order effects of that progress? It doesn't matter if, in absolute terms, you eclipse somebody, right? When you do that, because uh, that's this is not a binary play. While you're catching up, things are going to change in such a way that the former leader its dominance essentially becomes obsolete. You understand? So let's say Nvidia is great, everything is great, right? OpenAI is terrific. It's a $500 billion company. But how does it matter if China gets DeepSeek? Now, is China the leader in AI? No. Is China the leader in semiconductor? No. But if it's being able to democratize the AI model with something like DeepSeek, which turns out to be revolutionary, right? How does it matter if it's still a few steps behind America? So China essentially is looking at that, and it's very serious, right? So Chinese chip industry leader Huawei will report double output of its top Ascend 910 chip in the next year. So that's what's going on. A pretty interesting play as far as Chinese uh, adventurism in AI and chip making. Huge, huge, right? Boat has swung to profit. Every company, you'll see all companies being close to profits or, or profitable already when it comes to going with IPO is considered, because when companies are pitching for IPO, they essentially look at profitability brush ups, right? So Boat has shown a 60 crore profit, right as it goes to the IPO street. Now, this is not exactly, this doesn't make the company black. Now, while Boat has swung in black, it's not enough to actually count that company as uh, you know a good bet, let's say. Why? Because at a scale of 3000 crores, right, its revenue, while it showed profitability, while it could brush up its finances, right, and show profitability, its revenue actually declined from 3122 crore to 3098 crore, right? Revenue decline, like what does it say? And the market in which Boat operates, the smartwatch market, nobody's buying smartwatches anymore. Shipments are down. Smartwatch as an industry itself is not that green anymore. So what happens? And the replication, the competitors of smartwatches, let's say the rings and so on and so forth, right? The GCM monitors, uh, all of those things, there are a lot of players. That's basically a commodity play. So it's all a distribution might, and Boat doesn't have its own distribution. It's totally dependent on Amazon, on Flipkart, and all of these platforms. It basically doesn't have any distribution might of its own as yet, right? So this means that the company essentially is not that green of a bet, but it's got to feed the monkey, and so it's out. Moving on, Grow is also looking at IPO. So we've talked about Grow's IPO. They're looking at a $7 to $10 billion valuation, 7 to 8 billion, 8 to 9 billion. What was it? Anyway, they've bought a Fisdom. They bought a company called Fisdom. It's basically, a wealth management play, a wealth management platform. So that's these companies are money, right? Zerodha, Grow, uh, this particular thing, Dhan, and so on and so forth. Because it's basically betting but legal, right? Not chastising the industry, of course. India needs more investments in stocks. India needs more investments. India needs its populace to invest in nation building. So when the country essentially invests in its own companies, it's part of nation building, so that's great. But the market works like a gamble sometimes, and most people operate with the mindset of gambling, right? So essentially, stock investing is unfortunately, uh, related with gambling a lot. And if investing is gambling, stock broking platforms are betting platforms, and betting platforms make money, right? So moving on, there's a lot of co-CEOs happening apparently. Comcast, Oracle, Spotify. Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify, moved out. He's no longer the chief of Spotify, and he's essentially given the CEO tag to two people. So they're going to be two CEOs, co-CEOs of Spotify, which is what which is what led to this report about co-CEOs, that how co-CEOs are coming back, right? Suddenly, a watch for the wave of co-CEOs. BlackBerry had co-CEOs. That's one company I know of co-CEOs. But then there's KKR, traditional, very successful partnerships and so on and so forth, right? So, but only 1% of 3,000 largest public companies have co-CEOs. A lot of people are warming up to the idea of co-CEOs, but just a few years ago, if you would have asked somebody about co-CEO and their opinion of it, they would say that I would never invest in a company which had equal partnerships, because that signals that you don't know who's actually making decisions, and there needs to be one decision maker, right? But now suddenly people are warming up to co-CEOs. Now, what does this tell you? What does this tell you? That all this gyan that people come out with, the fashionable gyan, none of it holds any water. It's just a bunch of bullshit, right? People change opinions uh, with the tide, right? Moving on, as they should perhaps. Uh, breakneck festive demand leaves supply side gasping. So this is awesome. uh, Companies are saying that there's so much of demand because of the GST rationalization play, because of the Navratri play, and then post Navratri, this stuff is continuing. That there is a demand problem. Like smartphone manufacturers are looking at firing up the engines, the factory engines again, because there's so much of demand. There's transportation problems because you can double the train capacity to ferry cars, but you cannot double the trailers because there are limited number of trailers which transport cars, right? So manufacturing is one. Number two is transport. What is number three, by the way? Manufacturing number one. In the chain of events, what is number three? Manufacturing, transport, number three. What is number three? We've discussed this in a national growth story, the number three play. No, 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 not distribution. When you come to manufacturing, then there's transportation. Number three problem is the warehousing. In that context, I meant, right? Supply chain and logistics, right? Now, all of those things get stretched because of something called deferred purchases. Now, all the purchases got deferred because of the GST rationalization, which was announced, right? Now, all of this buying is happening right after a particular period of time, which is straining the logistics a lot, which is straining the transporters, which is training the logistics guys, the housing people, warehousing people, and so on and so forth. Right? Sales during Navratri Dashera signed surged up to 100%. Right? Companies have scaled local production last minute beyond industry estimates. First phase smartphone sales value up 12%. Now, smartphones were not growing at all, right? And now they are in India. Auto supplies will take 12 to 25 to 30 days to normalize. Car carriers maximum capacity, freight volumes also high. Trailer and transport bottlenecks likely to ease by end of October. So this is awesome. This is great, right? This is exactly what we were hoping for. Demand is strong even after Navratri. This is terrific, if you ask me. This is exactly Mr. Tiwari had asked when we were discussing this, and I had said the first few days they don't look so great, man. And if nothing happens, we'll be screwed, right? So these people are saying there's just a 30% growth. A lot of people don't even know about GST rationalization. This is not cool. And then Mr. Tiwari had asked, "Hey, what would be cool for you, Nishant?" And I was like, 100% rise. That would be cool. The sales need to double from the last year, right? Because of if this is what we are doing at such scale, they really need to double, and that's exactly what happened. A lot of things actually doubled, right? Uh, Moving on. Now, if the transporters are getting stretched, right, that means it's serious business. While that is happening, uh, gold is rising yet again. Gold's rise and shine movement continues, silver catches up. 50% in a year. Mr. Tiwari says you should have said 200%. Well, I'm so happy. This is great news. What I want to see now is some serious capex, right? Coming from the private sector, and not just in the power play. I need to see some capex in consumer durables, in heavy electronics, and all sorts of play, right? We need to see capex, which will be beautiful, which will be awesome. So this is great news for the country. Speaking of capex, if we are talking, Eli Lilly, by the way, is looking at setting up some contract manufacturing units in the country. Eli Lilly is behind that drug, the weight loss, the GLP thing, right? And that is also an opportunity to invest, and that will not just double your money in 100 days. Doubling the money to 100 days in 100 days is awesome. It's awesome. It's great, right? Uh, but we can far exceed that opportunity if we get hold of a company, let's say Shally Engineering. Is Shally Engineering plastics? Shally Plastics share. Oh, so they're a listed company. Okay, I did not know that. But they've grown 50% in the past 6 months. 136%. They've doubled in the last year as well. So Shally Engineering. But the point is, I don't know about Shally Engineering much, to be honest. But any company which is related to the GLP play, it's just gonna be extraordinary. Some local company, some mid cap, some small cap company, which is basically a vendor to these guys, something critical, and that's gonna be a run like no other, right? So that is another opportunity which we should find. So if you find something, please let me know. I'm not a trader, so I haven't really dived deep into it. But if somebody finds, their thesis, please write about it, right? And it'll be awesome. Anyway, so Mr. Sharma asks, is there any ceiling to gold silver prices? Historically, have to they continue to rise? Okay, so that is an interesting question, Mr. Sharma. Is Eli Lilly listed in India? No, 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 no. Eli Lilly is not listed in India, and Eli Lilly stock is not to be touched. The US stock, no, it's the India market, right? That's gonna be 10x. The GLP play, because India is uniquely positioned in a way where, like, there right now are 1 lakh people taking this drug. They're gonna be 12 lakh people just next year, next to next year, in 2 years, right? And they all have that injection kind of a thing. Now it's gonna be bad news for a lot of industries, a lot of people. It's a health hazard, I don't know, but maybe some people are actually benefiting, the clinically obese, right? Maybe those people actually benefit from these GLP drugs. I don't believe it. I am very, very scared about the whole science. I'm very skeptical of it, right? I think it's gonna, this thing is gonna lead in tears, people in tears. But uh, looking at the bright side, if you are to trust these people, which I don't know why you would, but if you are to trust these people, whoever is supporting this ancillary industry will make a lot of money. So in India, that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, you were talking about gold, silver prices. So a lot of people think about gold, silver prices, and what's the right way to actually look at gold, silver prices? What's the history of gold, silver prices? So you cannot have a graph of gold, silver prices before 1971, because before 1971, gold essentially was pegged, the currencies were pegged to gold, right? So if currencies were essentially reflecting gold, gold prices were essentially reflecting currency. So it doesn't make sense to think about gold prices before 1971, right? Because Bretton Woods happened 1940, and from 1940 to 19, so you know what Bretton Woods does. Do you want a history of gold? uh, does anybody need, or should we just go past 1971? uh, Anyway, so I'll go past 1971. Okay, now 1971 is when dollar and gold essentially uh, got disassociated. So in Bretton Woods, US became the de facto, currency of the world, but US was backed on gold, right? But then US started funding wars and so on and so forth, and started printing a lot of dollars. And because other currencies, other economies were essentially looking at US dollars, right? They wanted uh, they wanted their money back. They wanted dollars back. So they wanted gold back because gold was dollar was essentially pegged to gold, right? So if dollar was so pegged to gold, that means that if in exchange for your dollars you can get gold, right? So that is what happened. So France called the bluff, and they said that these people are funding so much of wars and so on, Vietnam War and whatnot. These people don't have the gold, so they asked for their gold back, right? And in 1971, Nixon had to say that temporarily US is gonna get uh, disassociated. I mean, the dollar will get disassociated with gold. Now, if dollar gets disassociated with gold, that means dollar is free and gold is free. Now, if gold is free and dollar is free, that's the only time when you can actually look at the graph of gold in a reliable way, right? Before that, the whole currencies were themselves pegged, right? So some people print 100-year-old graph of gold prices. That doesn't make any sense. That's just stupid, right? Now, from 1971, if Mr. Abhishek Sharma asks, is there any ceiling to gold silver prices? Have they continued to rise? So they have continued to rise in substantial periods of time. So if you look at 1971 to present, the gold's price, it stays here and then it rises and then stays static from 1980s to 2000s, right? And then 2000s happen, and then gold just goes on the cliff till 2000 like 10 or something, right? Because of the whole financial world instability, if you remember. So in 2001, 1991, the dot-com bust happened in 1999, and then gold started rising. And in 2007, you remember what happened, right? The Great Recession. And then the gold just kept rising, and it rose till 2012, and then it fell a little, it bottomed out in 2015 or something, and then it's starting to rise again. So it's essentially a proxy for the weakening of global financial system. So that's what gold works as, right? Now the question is, the question of Mr. Sharma is there a ceiling to this? The ceiling is an absolute crash and the recovery of it. So when after things crash, while things are crashed, it's gonna be up, right? And as things recover, that's when it's gonna go down. So gold is gonna go down after things have crashed and they're looking at recovery. So till then, it's pretty solid, right? Because Mr. Ray Dalio just came out of his building again, and he said that America is in deep trouble. We are spending $1 trillion in interest payments. We have $7 trillion of maturity of debt coming. We're gonna have to refinance that debt. What refinancing means is they're going to take on new debt to mature to pay the old debt, right? So you take on the new debt. Whoever buys that debt is gonna be should be very scared, because if our interest payments just keep rising, right, most of what we spend is basically we are spending 5 trillion in debt, we have 7 trillion in spending, and so on and so forth. So we have $12 trillion to refinance and so on. So what he says is US is basically coming at an inflection point of debt problems. If that happens, the entire market is going to crash in ways that nobody can imagine. In ways that nobody can imagine. Nobody, right? And what do you do if markets crash in ways nobody can imagine? You can only keep gold, right? You can only keep gold. People say Bitcoin is also an hedge. It's not. Bitcoin has traced the market movements pretty much the same way, right? So Bitcoin is not. Gold is that play. So that's the scenario. People said yes, yes. What does that mean? I mean, are you talking about the history of gold? The yes, yes thing? Is that what you're calling? Okay, so I'll just go with, a brief if that's what you were talking about. Yep, says Mr. Raj. Okay. So, previously, uh, when you look at pre 1933 or 1929 is when the Great Depression happened. Okay. So, Great Depression. Okay. So, but pre 1933, uh, dollar was pegged to gold, like $20 some cents equal to one uh, OZ, right? Uh, that's called an ounce of gold or whatever. So that was dollar, right? Now that was the gold standard. 1933 was the gold standard. Then 1944 is when Bretton Woods happened. Bretton Woods is when all the global world leaders met in Bretton Woods, literally a hotel in, where was this hotel? It was in New Hampshire, US, right? Bretton Woods was the place. So they met in a hotel and they said that we need a currency, and we need a currency to be the anchor of the global currency, right? Now that is Bretton Woods. That happened in 1941, was it? 44. Okay, so 1944 is when Bretton Woods happened. Bretton Woods, all of these world leaders met together, and they fixed US dollar as the anchor currency, and they essentially fixed their currencies to the dollar. So let's say 7 rupees is $1. Back in 1944, 7 rupees was $1. 25 0.25 pounds is $1, and so on and so forth, right? So these people essentially pegged their currencies with dollar, and dollar was $35 per ounce of gold. So that was Bretton Woods essentially. Okay, so $35 per ounce of gold, that was the dollar. And every currency was pegged to the dollar. So that was Bretton Woods agreement which these people reached out. Okay, so gold anchored the world and dollar was the play. And then, in the 60s, Vietnam War happened, everything happened. Apollo, like space race happened, and so on and so forth. And US started printing a lot of dollars, right? And everybody said, like, what's happening? How are these people printing so many dollars? Do they have the gold underlying those dollars, right? So France said that we have so many dollars, we need the gold. And US said we are temporarily dissociating dollar with gold. And that was 1971. And that temporary dissociation has been permanent since then. So that is the history of gold pegged to money. Okay. So before that, gold used to be a barter thing and so on and so forth, right? So if you go to 1960s, oh sorry, 1600s, 1400s, and so on and so forth, when you look at civilizational plays, right? So if you look at Ray Dalio's book, The New World Order, in which he traces the history of all sorts of currencies. So before dollar, there was British currency, right? Before British, there were Dutch people. So reserve currencies are the anchor of the world, and reserve currencies come with the country which is most powerful, right? So there was this Dutch hegemony, there was this British hegemony, then there's this American hegemony, and so on and so forth, right? So that's now what you're looking for is an end of the American hegemony. That's Mr. Ray Dalio's story. That's what he's speaking, right? Since so long. So I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm just saying what he's speaking. So he says US is ending, that civilization is declining, China is rising. He's basically learned Mandarin, man. He's taught his kids Mandarin. So he's like a half Chinese guy, right? These finance guys, they don't have any association with any country, or they don't have any nationalistic feelings, right? They don't have any like anchoring of their things. Like Warren Buffett, sir, if you look at Warren Buffett, he's always been a very pro America guy. He's been like never bet against America. He's always said, exceptionalism, American exceptionalism. He's always believed in it. So if you read his not his autobiography, but his biography, Snowball, it's all about America, America, America. Ray Dalio, not so much. So he's saying that it's the end of the dollar as the reserve currency. So if things go that way, you don't know what happens. That's the play. Uh, Mr. Amrit Raj says that sounded interesting. Mr. Tiwari says good backstory. Well, I didn't write it, so no credits to me. But yeah, glad you liked it. Moving on. Shit, man, we took a lot of time here. 8:52 already. Holy shit. Anyway, Dove Kettle has is looking to raise 1.6 billion dollars. It's a special chemical play, Dove Kettle, right? You know why chemical companies are raising money? You know why? Why are companies raising so much of money? Come on, folks. It's the second order effect of something. We've discussed this. We've discussed this, right? You don't remember? A lot of action, right? No, not just EV, semiconductors, EVs, a lot of sunshine industry, solar modules, and so on and so forth. So you're right directionally, Mr. Sharma. By the way, solar modules exports are up 21% in the first 4 months of FY26, right? Solar panels, solar modules exports going up. Most of it is going to US, where tariffs haven't hit yet. Moving on. Bharti Telecom is issuing bonds of $1.7 billion. Now, one of their debt is approaching maturity. So they are basically looking at refinancing that debt with a bond, as all companies do, right? So you take a debt, and when it's time to pay, you take another debt to pay that debt, and then you pay this debt later. Then you pay interest. When it comes time to pay this, then you take another debt to pay that debt, and so on. Moving on. Bharti is doing great though. A lot of political BS, which we are very happy to not discuss. Varmora promoters have bought back 2% stake from Carlyle, the private equity players, before they go IPO. Everybody's so bullish on IPOs, right? Everybody wants to go IPO. Moving on. India weighs waiving billions in Vodafone dues to boost UK ties. Well, the only way for India to actually support, or let's say, if the only way for a Vodafone Idea to survive is that the government just waives its debt off, right? Because there's no way Vodafone will be able to pay back any of its debt. I mean, all the debt that it has, it's going to the toilet come what may, man. Right now, there's a news about Reliance Jio adding subscribers, BSNL adding subscribers more than Airtel. Airtel also is adding subscribers, but Vodafone continuing to lose ground. So Jio leads user additions in August. BSNL pushes Airtel to third spot. Vodafone continuing to lose ground. So Jio has 4 lakh, how many? BSNL added 1.3 million subscribers. Airtel recorded 4 lakh 96. We lost 3 lakh users. So even though they had this incentive scheme for retailer commissions, which they've announced now, let's see how that pans out for them. But for now, they're just losing the ground, losing money. They have debt. We are taxpayers, and taxpayers are essentially 49% shareholders in Vodafone Idea, and Vodafone is just screwed, man. Anyway, moving on. Airtel has bagged a deal to offer railway digital security, Airtel business arm. So Mr. Bharti has long conveyed his wishes of being a conglomerate beyond telecom. Some of those wishes are coming true. Let's move on. India and Qatar to soon begin FTA talks. That's okay. Services growth eases in September amid weaker global demand. So what's the services purchase? Anyway, by which Vodafone can bounce back? What do you mean, Mr. Sharma? Anyway, so Indian services activity eased to 60.9 in September from 62.9 in August. So August was a 15-year high, 62.9. So you know how to read the purchasing managers index, right? If it's above 50, it means expansion. If it's below 50, it means contraction. It was 62.9 in August, which was a 15-year high. So naturally, it eased in September because that kind of growth is always followed by some sort of uh, drawdown, and that drawdown happened 60.8, weaker global demand, but it's not really. It's basically the real news. The headline says weaker global demand, but actually, it's just cooling off period. Moving on, efficiency gains, tax cuts, competitive slightly likely to add growth in coming months. That's okay. Moving on, I don't understand any way by which. So you're saying, is there any way Vodafone can bounce back? Is that what you mean, Mr. Sharma? Uh, because the answer to that is no. No. So in 2020, during COVID, I used to do a lot of cycling, 70 kilometers a day. So my cycling partner, who used to be like a pro cyclist, right? He used to dabble in stocks. So he was a finance guy. And he said, I'm buying Vodafone stocks, Idea stock, because I think it's a value bet, right? And I'm like, it's not a value bet, man. There is no way that that company is coming back. And he said, really? And I'm said, yes, right? So that was 2020. That's 5 years from now. Just take a look at the graph. There is no way that that company can fight back. There's just no way. The only way that company has survived, and the only reason why Mr. Bharti, Mittal, no relation to me, of course, wanted that company to survive was because Indus Stars was a very big supplier to Vodafone India, and if Vodafone went down, it would have meant a loss for India, Indus Stars. So that company has no business fighting now. It's just a lost cause. So there's no way that company can come back. Now the government owns 49%. The only way it can come back is that the government just waves off all the dues and says you're debt free. Go beta go, live your life, Go Simran, live your life. And that's the only way. If suddenly it finds itself debt free, and that can't happen because that would be just every company will go and just take a lot of debt and go under, and then it'll hope that the government will just waive its debt off, right? So that can't happen. I don't see any way Vodafone coming back. India should lower tariffs and non-tariff barriers. Niti CEO says, as India US trade talks continue, hopeful of trade pact. So Niti Aayog CEO saying that India should lower tariffs. Well, I don't agree at all. Obviously there should not be uh, like tariffs for nothing, but tariffs are very necessary sometimes. So it needs to be looked at at a case to case basis. I don't agree at all. Moving on. Within 6 months, EV may cost as much as petrol cars. Within 6 months, Mr. Nitin Gadkari says he's on fire. He doesn't believe in mincing any words. So he says within 6 months, EV will cost as much as petrol cars. 22 lakh crores. He came out with his usual spiel, right? Which is very beautiful. I love it. 22 lakh crores is spent on crude oil purchases every year. It drains our country. Farmers can make 45,000 crores making ethanol. EVs have a lot of potential. Soon, India will be, in 5 years, India will be. We want to make India the largest automotive market in the next 5 years, and so on and so forth. But he says in 6 months, EVs may cost as much as petrol cars. Now, what did I tell you about this particular announcement? Does it remind you of anything? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, do you know? What did I tell you? What is it going to lead to when he says within 6 months, EVs are going to cost as much as petrol cars? What will happen to EV sales if this narrative becomes popular, and why? Any answers? No answers. What will happen to the sales of EVs if Mr. Gadkari says EVs are going to cost as much as petrol cars in 6 months? Right? No, no. Stocks up. I mean, okay, stocks can be up for various reasons. Benefits Tata Mahindra. No, that's okay. But what happens for 6 months. We talked about this, the Osborne effect, right? Deferred purchases. If the industry knows, if people know that something is going to get cheaper in 6 months, are they going to buy the vehicles right now? Right? We discussed Osborne effect. Do you remember? There was a company in 1980s which used to manufacture computers, Osborne Group. They essentially said that the next model is gonna be great, so great. This is gonna be great. This is while they announced, they built up, they hyped up their next model. The current model stopped selling, and then the company went bankrupt. They couldn't really release that next model, right? And then this concept in the industry came to be known as Osborne effect, right? So if you build up a vision for the future, right, purchases stop happening right now. If this particular narrative becomes mainstream, people will wait on till they buy electric cars, right? And because of that wait period of 6 months, the whole industry might just suffer because for 6 months people will be looking at waiting and watching, right? Deferred purchases. Now if they defer the purchases for 6 months, right, and they hope for, then the Mr. Sharma asks, in that case, I wonder what benefits such statements provide. No, so you've got to build a positive image, right? You've got to hype the market up. You've got to create a bullish sentiment, right? But yes, uh, if you give a timeline like this, it just sets everything up, right, in that direction, in the Osborne effect direction. But yeah, that's what happens. Moving on. Apex Court to hear Vodafone appeal to for AGR interest penalty waiver. So just waive first of all waive the penalties, then waive the interest, then waive the debt, then waive the principals. Just waive it off for uh, Apex Court and Vodafone. Moving on. Oversold IT rebound. We've talked about this. Hospital stock surge, but rally may not last. Hospital stocks surge, but rally may not last, says a report. Well, the rally should last. I mean, I don't know about hospitals individually, but Fortis sold over 7%, Max sold 6.3%, Yatharth Hospital 4.5% each, right? Hospital stock surge of 7% on Monday after ministry announced revised rates and so on and so forth. That's cool. But hospitals as a sector in India is gonna be great because of what? Because of medical tourism. So these people are really focused on medical tourism, and medical tourism is gonna help the sector a lot. Right? So that's what's gonna happen. Moving on. US stocks stick towards record AI frenzy. Well, I told you, most of the stock craze that's happening in US, most of the gains that the country is seeing, even China, it's mostly AI, right? 26% AMD rise, Intel rose, Nvidia rose, of course, so on and so forth. So it's crazy whatever's happening. India doesn't have that kind of play any right now. So let's hope India also get, and that's when you're gonna see the sentiment change about the Indian stock markets all of a sudden, right? Rapper King Saurav says hello. Well, hello, yo. Moving on. So please note, when I said hospital rally may last, I didn't mean the stocks in particular. I said the overall sector's sentiment is really green. What I'll do now is I'll study these hospitals and their revenue multiples and earnings multiples and so on and so forth, and see if it makes sense to actually buy the stocks, right? So it's not a clear buy recommendation. Please don't report me to SEBI. Moving on. Microfinance interest rates continue to climb. Credit cost stays high. That's okay. Microfinance has been trouble. LG has a standout return on net worth. Can be a long-term bet. Now we discussed about LG, right? 24,000 crore revenue, while the parent, international parent, does 84,000. But the companies are worth the same market cap. It's very interesting what's happening. Moving on. Banks could rally, but timing of a rate cut holds key, right? Banks will rally. This is the quarter when the rally begins, essentially. So banking sector will be very green for some time. Hotel chains serve a strong H1 show despite headwinds. Of course, hospitality is green. We talked about hospitality a lot. uh, Toxic chemical DEG, that is diethyl glycol, I guess. DEG is diethylene glycol, sorry. Diethylene glycol is the impurity. Government test report has found out that diethylene glycol is the reason why so many deaths happened because of the cough syrups, right? So let's see what happens in that direction. Very sad. Very sad. Very sad. Master plan in the works to build a brand new city around Navi Mumbai airport. Second order effects, folks. Second order effects. Master plan in works to build a new city around Navi Mumbai airport. Process of hiring a consultant for planning and advisory. So if a new city happens, a lot of smaller homes are surging the demands, and also there is talks about new hiring going 30% up in tier 2 tier 4 3 cities for the GCCs, which is exactly what we discussed yesterday, right? We need to distribute the growth or the industrial growth away from metropolitans, which is great news. Moving on. A lot of geopolitical hammering which is also happening. Can't discuss that. AMD has struck a multi-billion dollar deal with OpenAI. A lot of deals happening, man, in AI. It's just crazy. We also have a deal, and hopefully I should share a good news with you soon. Somebody has won a Nobel Prize for immune system self-control. So, two Americans and one Japanese. American scientists Mary Brunkov, Fred Ramdell, along with Shimon Sakaguchi, they found out that they've done a research on how immune system finds out what it's supposed to attack and what it's supposed to save, right? Now, if they figured that out, they can figure out how autoimmune disorders happen and how they can correct them, and how cancers happen and they can correct them. So this is a pretty big deal. So let's see if this research can actually, uh, you know, solve real problems. Moving on. Nationwide climate-linked insurance scheme on cards. This is due to all the natural disasters which are happening recently. Realty transactions evade taxmen using fake PAN cards. Well, we talked about this, right? Benami transactions, tax officials verifying details to improve traceability, ensure genuine property ownership. So we talked about Benami transactions for real estate, where people are essentially, whoever is on the bill, it's not the real owner, they don't have the money, and so on and so forth. A lot of cases, that's all fake. So the data needs to be corrected. Property registrar reports deals of 30 lakh crores, 30 lakhs or more, and such deal escapes attention of the tax office. It's the smaller deal size, and crores of money essentially is going, towards these fake real estate deals essentially, and new data norms are being set up. So that's now everybody thought that once Aadhaar came in, why didn't Aadhaar get linked to everything, right? And that could have been great. But you know what came in that way? Privacy, the concerns on privacy, right? And what did I tell you about privacy? Do you remember what I told you about privacy, right? What did I tell you about privacy, guys? You remember? It was a pretty interesting discussion. Nobody? Come on. Privacy is a myth, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Correct. And privacy is a myth, and the only person who's basically espousing the whole privacy debate is usually a lawyer who can make money. That is also true, right? So all the privacy organizations are these lawsuit organizations essentially, which are fighting for the privacy right, but actually, privacy is a myth. And the only way you can have actual privacy is by not being interesting. If you're just a boring individual where people, not the government, not your competition, not your love interest, they are not interested in snooping on you. If you're an absolute bore, right, nobody will invade your privacy, right? But if you're interesting, people will invade your privacy, and you won't be able to stop them. It's just not possible, right? But because of privacy laws and everything, what happens is a lot of good things can't happen. Like a lot of data linkages cannot be centralized because privacy, right? And so on and so forth. So that, with that, we should come to the end of the 134th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:13 now. We're gonna punch in anytime soon. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally, and I'll hope to see you tomorrow, same place, same time. Uh, oh, talk on Gachiroli is still due, says Mr. Bhandiga. Oh yeah, we should do a deep dive on it. Let me read it. Mr. Suman Kumar says, be boring. Unfortunately, the reason why uh, Thinker's Frequency exists, Scott Adams, sir, uh, you know, Scott Adams, sir, is not feeling well. He's not well. He's going through a lot of pain, and it's very sad. So please pray for Scott Adams, sir. Because of Coffee with Scott Adams, that's why I started Thinker's Frequency. It was because of him that I got inspired to do this thing. Uh, I just hope he feels better soon, right? His testosterone blocker thing, uh, the treatment which was working well for him for months, it's not doing so well anymore, and I hope he feels better. So pray for Scott Adams, sir. Mr. Abhishek Sharma says, would love to have your thoughts on LG IPO through an article. And I'm not having time, I'm not being able to find time to write articles these days. I'm not being able to do that. The last article I wrote was like days ago, when I was actually taking a fight with a moron in the VC space. So there was a VC, this was 5 days ago, right? He wrote a very insensitive thing, and he keeps writing such stuff. So I used to look at his posts on LinkedIn, and I used to be like, who is this guy, right? And then he just crossed a line, and that was the last article I wrote, basically, telling everybody that he's a moron, right? So I'm not being able to find time. But the good thing happened after writing that article was that he blocked me, so I'm no longer seeing his posts, which is great news. Even though I didn't interact with his post directly, he still saw my post, and then he wrote a piece about in response as well. Somebody sent me, but the good thing is that he's blocked. So I mean, he blocked me, so I don't have to listen or read his bullshit any longer. Sure, Nishant, I just bought How to Fail at Almost Anything and Still Win Big. Says Mr. Sumant Kumar. That's very sweet of you. I hope you love the book, and I hope Scott Adams sir feels great. Uh, you know, it's because of him I got inspired. So, anyway, here's where we come to the end. Please take care. Have a beautiful day, folks. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Bye bye.